Welcome to 5 Minutes of Zen, episode 10. This is the 10th episode of this Zen series that I've been putting on. I hope you've been getting something out of it and making some progress, or at least attempts to sit and meditate. Let's start the clock to get our 5 minutes going. We were talking about intuition in episode 9, and intuition is an important concept in meditation, because the information, as we were saying, that you receive, or perhaps a better word would be knowledge, that you gain from a Zen practice, is an intuitive knowledge. It isn't mediated by the senses or concepts. We've talked a lot about the concepts that our minds build. These are called vikalpas in Sanskrit, and this is the way we model and interpret reality. So it is all this data comes in through the senses, and then we collect and separate and categorize and name and create a reality in which we are moving around in and understanding by. So all of that knowledge is what we call mediated knowledge. It's mediated through senses and concepts. Intuitive knowledge is something that is direct, and it is known all at once, whole thing, because it lacks that separateness. So when I was saying you have mediated knowledge, typically it's because there is something that you're knowing separate to yourself, and so you're creating these constructs around it. When you have direct knowledge or intuitive knowledge, this is something that you know immediately, right in that moment. A good example of an intuitive grasp, it would be a mathematical problem that you've been working on, or it could be a variety of types of problems where the solution just isn't in your grasp. You've put in some work, it's just not, you just can't quite get your head around it. You let it go, you sit back on the couch, or you just take a rest, and at some moment you go, oh, I got it, and suddenly you grasp the whole thing. You've got the answer that you were looking for. Now in this example, of course, you were doing a lot of work, and it's probably dealing with something that is more of a mediated knowledge type thing, but that flash of a pure mathematical answer or something like that is intuitive, in that suddenly you know it. You don't know it through some other means. It's just pure knowledge at that point. Especially when we're talking about numbers and complex formulations, that you suddenly understand how they're going to fit together, so you aren't working with the numbers directly at that moment. You just grasp this entire thing. So I think I've belabored the point on intuition. Intuition is direct, sudden, and usually all at once. When we're seeking this state of Zen meditation, this samadhi was the word we used, when we're looking for that, that also is something that is unmediated. And because it's unmediated, we have to remember that we are not going to grasp it in the same way that we grasp other knowledge. We aren't going to know it as a concept which we can then go share. So you might say, well then, why are you spending all these episodes talking about Zen if it's something you can't share? We can share the process, and we can share the expectations, what you'll actually get when you have that intuitive moment. That's something I can't share directly with you, and you won't be able to share it with me. But I think if we discuss that experience with each other, we'll know that the other had it, that the other has seen this, that the other's been there. And that's the way in which this has been validated for several thousand years, is enough people come along, try the practice, have that intuitive flash, and are quite amazed by it, and quite convinced of that big word we did, veridicality, the truthfulness, the veridicality of the experience is powerful. And suddenly it becomes another way that we know. And it's something that most people don't experience very often. And it's worth doing because, as we were talking about the goals in the very beginning, We are trying to reduce the stress and anxiety and frustrations of our unmet desires and our unfulfilled conceptual ideas of what we want but what we really have, and all of that kind of stuff. Now those struggles will remain. They're not going to disappear because you meditate. What's going to change is your ability to go back into just that perfect repose of just being, but being free of those concepts. In that moment is freedom, is peacefulness, this equanimity in which one can just persevere and realize that the world doesn't necessarily need to include all of those frustrations. Now, of course, after meditation, you may now have different goals and different ways of looking at things that could be a very positive influence in your life. But as long as you want to keep a body and carry on, you'll still need to be part of a community and find food and employment and all of those kinds of things. But perhaps the way you approach them and the way you react to them will be quite different in a very positive way that makes your life more comfortable. So we're well over our 5 minutes, and on the next episode we'll talk about how grace factors into all of this.